All right, class, today's lesson is over the United States economy. Okay, today's student learning objectives. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to explain why government provides public goods and services, redistributes income, protects property rights, and resolves market failures. Number 2, explain the effects on consumers and producers caused by government regulation and deregulation. So the United States started off as a market economy. Today we're more of a mixed economy, and our federal, state, and local governments are involved in the economy in many different ways. The extent of government intervention in the economy in the United States has risen and fallen throughout the years, and this is typically decided by politicians or large groups of our population growing discontent with the current level of intervention. So what does the different levels of intervention look like? So let's take pollution, for example. A period of low government intervention in the economy may result in damage to public health from pollution. Therefore, citizens would demand government regulation of the polluting industries. They are hoping that the government will step up and create more laws because they want government regulation. So they want more government laws over the polluting industries or industries that pollute the earth, in hopes that this will preserve our health. Another instance, during a period in which the United States is at war, the government may redirect the use of resources to military production or limit the choice of careers for young people of fighting age. So when we talk about redirecting the use of resources to military production, let's say you own a t-shirt factory. Your factory may still produce t-shirts, but instead of producing for the general public, they would produce camouflage military t-shirts to be used in the war that is taking place overseas. Okay, an example of limiting career choices for young people of fighting age: in the Vietnam War, we began to draft young people to go fight in Vietnam. This is a perfect example of limiting career choices. Once you're drafted, you have no choice. You either go or you go to prison. All right, government involvement. The government gets involved to provide public goods and services, to redistribute income, to protect property rights, and to resolve market failures. Public goods and services are produced by the United States government only when the private market is unable to provide the good or service at a level that is considered beneficial to society. Most of the time, public goods and services are provided through tax dollars. For example, the public interstate system. There was a time back in the 1950s and 60s in which the private market had yet to produce a public interstate highway system, and there was great need for this system because the majority of the population in the United States was in the process of moving from urban cities into a suburban area outside of the city. So the need for an interstate system was to provide a pathway for people to drive from the suburbs back into the city to be able to make it into their jobs. Okay, again, this was necessary because the private market had not yet provided this good or service, and it would have been beneficial to society for the public interstate system to be established. Another public good and service is public education. Okay, for a very long time in our country, there's a certain group of people that were not provided education, and so their needs were not being met by the private market. So the government now has a reason to step in. And the government believes if they step in with public education, this would be beneficial towards society. So public education can be found at the local and the state government. And the overall purpose of public education is to produce productive workers for the economy. Okay. Again, it goes back to, is it beneficial? Is it produced currently in the private market? If it is not, then the government needs to step in. Could also be a situation where it's not produced as heavily as required, such as with education currently today. If public education did not exist, millions would go without any form of education because the expense and the cost of private education. Okay, we look at the court system. The court system is provided at the local, state, and federal government, and it is there to mediate disputes, to prosecute criminal cases, to protect the public safety. Okay, And then lastly, we get national defense. This is talking about our military, Army, Navy, National Guard, Marines, anybody else that you would like to put into the national defense. They are found only at the federal level, and their job is to secure the borders of our country and protect citizen safety. Without the national defense, these two things don't get done, and it would be very difficult for our country to function. Therefore, the government will provide a national defense under the grounds of good for society, and it's not provided by the private market. Now, we talk about the redistribution of wealth. Well, so what does it mean to redistribute? First, we have to identify what does it mean to distribute something. If we distribute something, we're actually giving something out. So when we talk about distributing wealth, we're giving out money. Many times you ask your parents to do this for you, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So if there's a redistribution of wealth, it means we're going to distribute wealth again. Very simple concept. This typically comes down from the government. When pursuing social economic goals of equity meaning fairness or equality, governments in the United States may choose to redistribute income or to take from one group of the population or one population in our country and give to another population. This is most commonly thought of as taking from the wealthy and giving to the poor. However, that's not always the case. You can take from any population and give to another, and this would be classified as the redistribution of wealth. The redistribution of wealth involves taking tax money from one group of individuals or firms and giving it to another group of individuals and firms. These transfer payments include things like social welfare payments to low-income citizens, unemployment compensation to those laid off during a recession, or Social Security payments made to retirees. Okay, these payments subsidize the income of recipients to allow the consumption of necessities. A subsidy is money that's given from the government. In some cases, there may be redistribution to higher income people, such as tax credits for buying electric vehicles. Again, this would go back to kind of a public good and service in that it would restrict or limit pollution is the idea. And so the government wants to make people pay less taxes if they go buy something that is currently beneficial to the general public. All right, now we get private property. In a market economy, the protection of private property rights is essential. If consumers and businesses are uncertain about their ability to retain property, they are less likely to purchase goods or invest in and expand their businesses. If we can't own our own property, then what point is there in even starting a business to begin with? It's not ours, it's the government's. Right? So you have zero interest to earn money or to earn profit to be able to buy more things if you can't own any of it to begin with. Property rights are protected by intellectual property laws such as copyrights and patents. Legal documents like deeds for real estate or titles for cars and business license or corporate charter recognize the legal owner of a business. Without a deed, without a title, or a business license or a corporate charter, there's nothing there that actually recognizes we own something. You can't show a receipt. A deed, a title, a business license, or a corporate charter is our receipt. It is proof of ownership. And without this, any property could be taken from us. So very important, kind of getting away from this actual lesson. Anytime you go buy something, you need to make sure that you know where your deed or your title or your license is to own and operate that vehicle, so that that vehicle or anything, not just a vehicle, can never be taken from you. In an economy that protects private property rights, the court system is supposed to hear property dispute and settle those based on an impartial rule of law, just meaning that the court system is going to rule based on what the law says and what it means. This is often very debatable. Okay, a market failure. Market failures occur when the private market is unable to produce goods and services in a way that the marginal benefit to society from the production of a good is equal to or greater than the marginal cost to society for producing that good. Market failures make up two things, or are made up by two things: externalities and market power. So what is an externality? An externality can be both negative and positive. They occur when a third party other than the consumer or producer of a good is hurt or benefits from the production or consumption of that good. For example, some industries cause air pollution while producing their products. If this pollution causes a local resident to get sick, this is a negative externality. If your new roommate at college plays their iPod full of all your favorite singers or bands, you get to enjoy it even though you didn't purchase the songs. This is a positive externality. In the United States, the government attempts to correct negative externalities like pollution through increasing taxes or regulation or laws that are placed on the polluting industry. This makes it more expensive to produce the good and reduces the amount of production. In the case of a positive externality, such as producing industries like colleges and universities, the government will provide subsidies or money to the institutions and to their students, so there is an increase in the amount supplied to the market. Okay, again, I want to really emphasize this. The word subsidy is money that is given to whatever body, whatever being, with the intent and purpose of that money never being paid back. This is very important. You've heard subsidy many, many times so far in this semester, and you'll continue to hear it. You really need to know what that word means. Okay, a market power. Market power refers to a market failure resulting from the formation of monopoly and oligopoly market structures. Monopoly market structures are markets controlled primarily by one seller of a good or service. An oligopoly market is one controlled by several large firms. Under antitrust laws in the United States, monopolies and oligopoly firms who work together to fix prices or restrain competitors may be prosecuted by the government and in some cases broken up into smaller companies. Economists are divided over the dangers of market power. Many believe that market power is fine as long as prices are reasonable and new competitors are not barred from entry into the market by unfair practices. Okay, so this is the lesson on the United States government and how we step in. Coach Long will have more for you. Thanks.